When it becomes time to perform a recovery, you will use our ShadowProtect Recovery CD. You can either download that on the internet as an ISO file and burn it to a CD-ROM, or you can request a CD when you purchase ShadowProtect. If you've had a disaster and you need to perform a recovery, whether it's to the same machine or to dissimilar hardware, into a virtual machine or out of a virtual machine back to a physical machine, you will use the recovery CD that we provide you when you buy ShadowProtect 4.0. The recovery CD has two operating systems that you can boot into to perform a restore. The first operating system is a Windows 7 based operating system. Now this doesn't mean that you're going to be restoring Windows 7, but just using Windows 7 to perform the restore. I recommend 100% of the time starting with this Windows 7 recovery environment, because if you're migrating an older OS or an older install to brand new hardware, the Windows 7 PE environment, you're going to get better hardware support. Also, if you boot into this environment and we don't happen to see your storage controller, your NIC, or what have you, you can go to the manufacturer's website, grab the INF, and dynamically load the NIC and the storage controllers within the Windows 7 environment. Also, you can dynamically load USB drives and everything else, so it's just much easier to work within the Windows 7 based environment, even if you're restoring Windows 2003 or Windows 2000 Server. If you do decide to use the 2003 legacy environment, keep in mind that if you're going to newer hardware, you might have to hit F6, provide a floppy with the INF or the storage controller to be able to see that array and lay that data down. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and choose the Windows 7 based environment. While this is booting up, it's going to ask you if you want to start networking. In this case, we do, because our images are out on the network. We'll be able to get an IP address from our DHCP server. If not, we'll be able to assign a static IP. Now that we're booted into the recovery environment, you can see that the recovery environment looks just like the installed product. This is a good thing because in the middle of a disaster, you don't need to have to figure out a new interface, a new way of doing things. The first thing I always do when I boot into the recovery environment is go to the Disk Map tab. The Disk Map tab is going to show me what is physically attached to this machine and the volumes that I can perform a restore to. So you see here, I do have a 25 gig drive that I can perform a restore to. And you can see that it's unpartitioned. And this is okay because we can do a bare metal recovery as well. So let's go map our network drive and get at our backup images. We'll launch the network configuration. And in here, I'll be able to click on network drive, just pick a random drive letter, and let's put in the path. We need to put in the user credentials that has rights to this location, and click Map Drive. Okay, we have our map drive. Let's go perform a restore. For this, I'm going to launch the Restore Volume Wizard. The first thing it's going to ask me is what partition or what drive do I want to perform a restore to? Well, as I said before, this drive is unallocated, so I can right mouse click on it and create a primary partition using all of the free space, or enter in a size. Now keep in mind, if you enter in a size, there is a limitation here. You need to enter a size that is the same size or bigger than the volume that you're coming from. So for example, if you're coming from a 100 gig volume, but you are only using 20 gigs worth of data, you still have to go to a 100 gig volume or larger. And in this day and age when hard drive space is so inexpensive, that's not a hard thing to do. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it to use the entire volume here. Once it will assign a drive letter, we'll be able to select it and click Next to perform the restore. Now we have two options here. We can perform a restore, or we have the ability to do a manual head start restore. I'm going to cover this in a later video, so right now let's just go ahead and perform a standard restore. We'll browse out to the computer and find our map network drive, which is under the network locations. Here is the machine that has just died. I want to go ahead and just grab this incremental. It's just a point in time. And we'll click Open. And it's giving me information of when it was created and all that fun stuff. Click Next. And Next again. So because I am doing a bare metal recovery, I have a few options I need to take care of here. I do want to set this partition active. It is my bootable partition. And I have the option to restore the master boot record from the image, which you will do 99% of the time, or restore Windows original MBR. The times that you need to restore Windows Original MBR is if you're coming from a server that had utility partitions in the beginning of the drive and you're not going to be restoring them here. So typically you want to start out with a fresh MBR. In this case, I'm going to start out with the one from the image. Restore disk signatures. This feature allows you to maintain drive letters. You only really need to check this if, say, your D, what should be D, is really named H or I or some other drive letter. Hidden disk tracks, these are the sectors right after the master boot record. I always leave this checked as well. Now, because we are going from physical hardware to a virtual machine here, I am going to dissimilar hardware, so I need to run our hardware independent restore. Let's take a look at the advanced options here. By default, low matches will be used on the drivers if better ones are not found. I always recommend leaving this on low, because if we have the exact drivers, we'll use them. If not, we're going to use the next best match to the next best match. In this case, your goal is to boot this machine as fast as possible to restore business continuity and get it up and running. So again, let ShadowProtect do its job, picking the best drivers. Keep in mind, HIR is not a magic button fix-all. It is a please let this boot on completely dissimilar hardware feature, okay? Meaning that you may have to still load additional drivers or more current drivers than what we have on our recovery CD. If you would like to do that as part of the HIR, you can come up here and add a file or add a directory and give it the exact drivers to the version of the OS that you're running. So you can take care of all that housekeeping items right here within the HIR wizard. Let's go ahead and click OK and click Next. And we're going to click Finish and let this run.